Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Lawrence. I head up the Association for Electronic Music, the global voice for electronic music. And when Ben asked me to moderate a panel for diversity in electronic music in association with She Said So, I kind of racked my brains on how to moderate it, because normally I'm moderating panels that are around commercial interests or kind of the ecosystem of electronic music, but here I'm on a panel with some amazing women, and I thought actually the really powerful thing is I'm not a woman, and in fact if you're going to have a panel about diversity, the problem we've got right now is it's like the least diverse panel you can have because it's all women. So once again we find ourselves having a discussion about diversity in almost a totally oppositional way because it's women v men. So thinking about myself as a man, I kind of think, well, actually, I see diversity as somebody else's problem because I'm a man. I see that there's an issue, I hear there's an issue, but personally I don't understand how it feels to be discriminated against, aggressively or simply via jokes in poor taste. Personally, I don't make decisions on employment or decisions about business based on gender, but at the same time I've also got two amazing young girls that are 4 and 6, and I don't want them to grow up and fail to achieve what they want to achieve because of their perception of the world or the world's perception of them. And yet I walk around IMS, and with all due respect to every man here, I know the poor jokes, I see the looks that the men give the women, I see some of the decisions, I read some of the stats, and I think to myself, well, in that case, there must be something going on, and there must be something that needs to change. I've hosted at least 2 meetings this year that have had only 1 woman in them. So I think we're at that point where there must be an opportunity rather than a problem, which is what I want to talk about with everyone today. And I think in much the same way as you can only change drug policy when you acknowledge drug taking, then I think you can only create a diverse environment in electronic music when you admit to sexism in electronic music. And I'm pretty sure that most men here, if they're honest with themselves, would put their hands up and admit that they've made a joke in bad taste, or they've made a comment, or they haven't opened the net wide enough in the decisions or recruitment policies they've had in their careers so far. So that's kind of my setup personally, and if I could just ask everybody to my right to introduce themselves, who you are, and a little bit about what you do, please.
I'm Maria May. I'm an agent at CAA in London.
I'm Nicole Moudaber. I'm a music producer and a DJ.
I'm B.Traits, BBC Radio 1 presenter, DJ, and music producer.
I'm Blair. I'm Director of Sales and Marketing at the Orchard Digital Distributor.
And I'm José, Woldring, and I am CEO and founder of the Media Nanny, a PR agency from Amsterdam and with an office in LA.
I'm Jackie Antas, and I'm the PR Director at Ticketmaster Live Nation Entertainment.
So this is, in a way, I almost don't want this to be a panel. I'd rather we just had a really interesting, fierce discussion and ignore everybody out there. But I think it's, Jackie, you've got some incredible statistics. Can you just give us 5 or 6 of them?
I feel like I'm about to drop a massive bomb, but here we go. In 2014, just 18% of electronic labels included women on their rosters. Women made up 11% of artists at electronic music festivals in 2015. On the Billboard Dance Artists to Watch 2016, just 1 out of 15 was female. In my hands, I've got DJ Mag. I don't think I need to go into too much detail about that. I don't know if this is true, Mark and I were talking about this earlier, but no major music labels, so majors have female bosses. So yeah, that's just a couple of stats, started for 10.
So Maria, CAA is quite pioneering and acknowledges the issue right up front. So can you talk to me about how your company has approached diversity?
So about 3 years ago, we started doing a year-long campaign about diversity, and it was the tagline was "Who's in the room? Is everybody in the room?" And as a workforce, we were encouraged to rethink our approach to everything we do, whether it was how we employ people, how we sign people, to address issues of diversity in our immediate circle. So for me, that's ringing up promoters of festivals and asking why there's no women on the bill. And it's made a radical difference to our business. We were given talks by leaders in Hollywood people of colour and women who talked about their experiences with sexual bias or racism in Hollywood at the top level, and why this was such a big issue, and why things needed to change, and why we needed to change our approach. And it's been I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and it's changed me massively, just in the way I think about everything to do with the professional side of my work. And as we were saying earlier, I do feel like in dance music, it is our responsibility to think in a diverse way.
Because also that's where we started. You think if there's any scene that could get this right without even having to think about it, it would be ours. Jackie, in terms of Ticketmaster and Live Nation, again, and when we're going through big business here, and as we move down, we'll move to individuals. But in big business, I guess you have to have policies to make a difference. What are Ticketmaster doing?
So across Live Nation Entertainment, Michael Rapino, our CEO and president, has made a really concerted effort to change diversity. We set up a diversity department. We have these employee resource groups, Pride Nation, which supports the LGBT community. We have We Nation, which is Women in Entertainment. And that's a support network for women in Live Nation Entertainment across the world to celebrate success within the company. We're about to launch a mentoring scheme for women. The Nordic countries seem to adapt these things a lot quicker, and rather than have women on women mentoring schemes, they're also getting men involved, which is a really important part of trying to change the conversation. Like CAA, we're going to be doing some unconscious bias training to really change our mindsets, because I think that's where a lot of the problem lies in, these aren't conscious, sometimes not a conscious decision in excluding women from lists and that. So it's really important to undergo specific training to change that unconscious bias.
José, as well, does it have to be a big company? Talk to us about your company. Presumably it started small, you're an entrepreneur. How have you approached it?
Well, out of the 14 or 15 team members, we have only 3 are men, so I think I'm doing quite good. Actually, we'd love to have more men in the company. But yeah, I love working with both women and men, and even though I just signed my first female artist, which is B.Traits, who is amazing, I've always been in a male environment, as I used to break dance, I used to show jump, which is like a lot of men, so I'm kind of used to it. And I think if you look in Holland in general, I think we're doing quite well. We have a lot of strong female rulers there. Like I saw Olga is sitting in here as well, and you have Anna Knaup, who's managing Hardwell. And I mean, I think it's really good that we have this conversation because if I look at how women approach business in general, I think we have so many great skills that men don't have. And I also think it's super annoying that people always ask me the question, as being a mom and an entrepreneur, how do you cope with that? Well, people never ask a man like, oh, you're a father and you run a business, how do you do that? So I hope this helps to like just be equal at some point. And because if I can do it, I mean, anyone can do it, any woman.
That's a great point, because no one's ever asked me about, I take my girls to school and back from school every day, and I probably cook them most of their meals, and no one's ever asked me that question. It'd be quite nice once in a while to be asked that question and talk about being a dad, but that's not a thing that you do. B, if I can turn to you, maybe talking about Radio 1 as well, and is Radio 1 a diverse environment? Does it have policies in place? And also kind of in your own personal experience, do you think we've still got some way to go to change perceptions?
So with Radio 1, since I joined the station in 2012, they've always been really, really supportive of women presenters. In my opinion, I think it's quite equal, gender-wise. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the BBC is under constant scrutiny. Like, it is constantly being watched by everyone. So they have to be at the top of their game all the time, and everything has to be extremely equal, which is what I'm noticing a lot now about events, about promoters. about magazines. Like, everyone is noticing now when the scales are tipped a little bit in the other direction. And I think the more that we do that, the more that we pay attention, and the more that we notice and talk about it and question why, I think that will only sort of promote equality, and it will only help us move forward.
And Nicole, is this, I know that you've got very strong opinions. Is this a problem, or should women simply just have fire and drive and step up and it'll all be okay?
I can only talk about my personal experiences. I never had a problem. I just get on with it. I do what I need to do and what I believe in, and I will not stop until I do it and it's completed. So it's down to the personality, I guess. Not a lot of men can do what I do anyway. And so maybe not a lot of women can do what I do. So it's down to the person. I've only been on the market for 6 years as a DJ and a music producer. And I don't think any man has achieved what I have done in such a short period of time to host their own stage festivals around the North America, which I have done this year, and I'm doing more again next year. And so I don't know what I hope I can be an inspiration to women and an example, but I never thought it was this massive problem for me, actually.
And I guess that's the point, is not, women shouldn't have to be ferocious to succeed, they should be talented to succeed. And
I think you have to be both.
And B, and I come to Lucy, but B, early B.Traits career versus now, what's the difference?
I've been DJing since I was 16 and cut my teeth in the drum and bass and jungle community. And at the time, it was extremely male-dominated and really terrifying. And when I look at myself back then, I call myself, that's the hard B.Traits era, because I had this rule where I had to be incredibly professional all the time, and I was just not taking any shit from anyone. And I don't like to conduct myself like that anymore, and I don't think that any female should have to. And that's just like kind of what, I mean, we're living in 2016 now. It should be different by now, for sure. It is definitely different.
Yeah, but not different
But
enough.
it should be even more so, for sure.
So, Lucy, I'm going to kind of devil's advocate. I'm going to play a role that's not me, which is, well, this just sounds like positive discrimination and quotas. And are you saying that every roster should be 50-50 irrelevant of talent? That's what some people would say. But is that right? In your opinion, is this a case of enabling women to step up, or should it be a forced situation? And what are the pros and cons of that?
I don't know if forcing the situation would be the right way to do it. You know, I don't think you can necessarily just set quotas and go, we have to achieve, as a company, you have to achieve this many women in your board or whatever. I don't necessarily think that would ever be the right way to do it, because I think everyone has to step up and accept responsibility, their responsibility to affect change. As you said, there are some men in the industry who need to accept responsibility for the fact that, yes, they're still sexist, this is still a problem. I think in society and culture as a whole, there is still very much a male-dominated culture. Kids growing up, the image they're presented of the world, I think, things are definitely changing hugely and faster than ever, and there are a lot of positive changes happening. But kids are still presented with a very kind of male patriarchal kind of a view of the world, I think. And there's a project called Redrawing the Balance by a charity called Inspiring the Future. And it's a project where in schools kids are asked to draw firemen, doctors, surgeons, these kind of professions. and they draw men. And at the end of the session, they're asked, would you like to meet, you know, the doctors and the firemen and things, and they're all women. And the children are really shocked, you know, and these are kind of young kids, you know, junior school age, and it just really goes to show kind of how young a stage, you know, gender assignment and gender biases kind of start. So I think we still have a lot of work to do. I think there are kind of two battles here, I guess. Sort of, we have a present situation battle where we're trying to change where we are in the industry now, and then also there's a second kind of battle is maybe not the right word, but a second kind of wave where we need to then educate the next generation as well and make sure that, you know, for the people coming up, they don't face the problems that maybe people of our generation have done with discrimination or gender bias.
And Jackie, I mean, you could also argue at the moment diversity debates and action seems to be women only. How do we make it everybody?
We just need to get men involved in the conversation. We need, you know, men on the panel. It'd be great to have some of the IMS partners, some of the AFEM board up here. I think definitely there needs to be some sort of an industry-wide maybe mentoring scheme. You know, big up to She Said So. You know, they provide an amazing platform for us to be able to communicate with each other. But again, that's just women communicating with other women. So we need men involved. So maybe that's where you can step in, Mark, and we can come up with some sort of a solution for the industry. But we need to have a network out there that's mentoring young people, not just women, but young men, people of all races, sexuality. I think diversity would really help with something like that in the industry.
Maria, what's in it for men then? Why should we create a diverse environment? I know you touched on it earlier, but if we accept that there isn't one, what's the benefit of having one?
Why wouldn't you want one? No, I mean... You've
looked at the commercial and cultural benefits in CAA. You've got tangible results. I think those are really important because if you don't... Any ecosystem, if it's not diverse, is kind of... Its long life is threatened, I would suggest.
I just think it's about, readdressing the balance and being an environment that reflects the world at large and supporting minority groups until they're no longer minority groups and making the world a fairer place. And if we can affect any change as individuals on that balance, then it's our duty to do so, in my opinion. And as a company, ultimately, if we have a diverse workplace, we have a diverse roster, we make more money because the world is a diverse place. It's as simple as that.
So you mean that the world is full of men and women, and so companies should be full of men and women? Yeah. So, Lucy.
Can I just jump in there for a second? Because I think it's not always the case as well that there's a lack of desire, if you like, on the part of men to kind of get involved in the conversation and to help work together with women to achieve diversity. But I think sometimes they actually just kind of don't even know where to start, which is where I think, as Jackie was saying, it's so important that we kind of introduce a lot more schemes and initiatives where it's easy for men to get involved, because I organised a panel on gender equality at Brighton Music Conference in April, and I was speaking on it, and there was a question at the end from a male member of the audience, and he said, you know, I'd really like to do more, but I kind of don't know where to start, kind of thing. You know, where should men start with getting involved? So, you know, I definitely feel like if we have more industry-wide initiatives where we get men involved from the very start and we make it easy for them to add their voice to the conversation and support women, I think that would, you know, just really help to affect change faster and more effectively.
If I can just quickly jump in there, I think it's also really important to start at a school level, education level. I think we spoke about this earlier. You do an amazing scheme. I think you should tell everyone about it.
I'm involved in a non-profit organization that helps young girls in the Lower East Side in New York City. And so basically we help these girls to study music, technology, anything around science. And so we help them, and we create these programs to help them further their careers and their knowledge. And so, yeah, I'm very proud to be part of this, actually.
I'm going to go back to your company and a comment you made earlier that you only have a handful of men working in the organisation, which you could almost see as a discriminatory environment. What's the cause of that, and how are you going to rectify it? Because based on the logic of everyone in this discussion, you're losing out because you have too many women.
I think in PR, there's a lot of women working in PR. I've thought about it, why that is, because I think there's men really good in PR and women who are really good in PR, but I mean, I like to see my team as a family. So obviously, all the people that I hired are either friends or friends from friends, and who I kind of taught, the way how to be a PR manager. So I have no one working in the company who had a degree in, marketing or anything else. So it's either dropouts or my brother who I just hired. So to be honest, I feel like being successful in this industry is also about the vibe we have in the team and in the company. Like we have we have a great office. There's music. There's a lot of people laughing. We have so much fun, and I think that's why people like to work with us, as well as we're like this group of people that, even if we do press with our artists, and obviously you have to be professional and you have to, be on point, which we all are. People just, I don't think it's about us being women, but they just feel like sometimes, because we're like their big sisters, especially with the men, they like to have a woman behind them and take care of them and make sure they look good and they have their bottle of water. And so I don't know, but to me, so I work with Martin Garrix, who I knew since he was 15. So I've always been his big sister, as well as his PR manager, and I work very closely with Scooter Braun, who's his manager. And if you even look at the company like Scooter Braun, on Martin's team, there's a lot of women. His social media strategy, me, two of the managers who are assisting the managers are women. Two of his booking agents are women. So, like, he might be a good success story, driven like a team driven by women. And as well, like now we have a small company, but building out to other countries, and we'd like to start up an office in the UK. For some reason, people always tell me like, oh, you should talk to this girl, like she's amazing, she's really good in what she does, and blah, blah. No one has ever come up to me like, oh, you should hire this guy because blah, blah, blah. So I also, people just come up to me with the right people.
I think it's also down to culture. The American culture, the Middle Eastern culture, obviously the Dutch are very advanced, the Scandinavians are very advanced in the perception of things. So I think culture plays a very big role in what we're talking about today.
If I go to, whenever I go to the US, a lot of people think I'm a guy because of my name, obviously. Or they tell me like, oh yeah, I would like to speak to your boss, José. Like, it's like, oh, that's me. I think you're right, it's a difference in culture, and like some countries have not, come as far as maybe Holland has, and I'd love to see that change.
That actually hits a point squarely on the head, which is this kind of the passive discrimination. It's not active, it's the assumption made that it's always a man. It's an inbuilt cultural thing. It's not what I would say a man waking up deciding to be sexist. And I think, and that's the difference. There are just behaviours and beliefs that reinforce the situation that need to change. So this really, we should flip the conversation into what are the things that we should all do differently. So when we come back next year and have a panel that's got as many men as it has women on it to talk about diversity, what do you think we can all start to do differently between now and then? Like, never use the phrase female DJ in the media ever again.
That'd be great.
Never, ever.
Yeah. In terms of what we can be doing, it's just like discussing it more openly and really just kind of getting rid of that us and them whole mentality.
Yeah, I've been put once in the female top 15 DJs or whatever I saw. And I just got in touch with them and told them to take it down immediately. There isn't a black DJ chart or like an Asian with blue eyes chart. So why do we have a female DJ chart? I don't understand it.
be. You were saying, yeah. Maybe there should be one. That'd be great. We should have a multitude of charts for a positive discrimination purpose. But I mean, we should just flip all the mics on and just throw ideas around, because there must be things that we can all commit to on a wish list that isn't a gender war that just says, come on, must be 5 or 6 things that we can all do better and do differently. I'm the man on the table, throw them at me.
But I think we're in a unique moment now to actually just adjust the balance completely. And if everybody in everything when they're thinking about their working lives, or when they're an employer, or how they run, if they just make that slight adjustment in we all get stuck in these grooves of comfort zones. I'm equally as guilty. I have 8 women on a team of 10. And that needs to be addressed. So maybe we'll have a panel with all men on next year. I don't know.
You can moderate it.
There you go. So, and you just have to think constantly, am I thinking in a diverse way in that approach? And it's very easy to do, and as soon as you do it, it just becomes the most natural thing in the world.
So, Lucy, give men in the room 5 things to do differently that will just affect small change that eventually makes big change. Or 1 thing, 2 things. Let's talk about action.
What a hideous task that is. Jesus. Why do you have to give that one to me?
If we've already agreed that the use of female DJ should be banned, because otherwise, or at least use male DJ, just don't say there's DJs and female DJs, because that's immediately discriminatory.
Yeah.
What are the little tactics that will make a difference, that will stop reinforcing stereotypes?
I mean, I think it's a lot of the things that we've all already touched on today, actually. As you said in the beginning, Mark, kind of accepting responsibility for the fact that there still is sexism in music, admitting that yes, it still is a problem, and not just in music, in any industry, and in culture and society as a whole. So I think men, one thing you can do, admit there's a problem and that it needs to be addressed, and accept responsibility and become part of the conversation for addressing it. I mean, there are men certainly that I can think of, not in the music industry but actually in tech, who are initiating I think really good actions in their companies. For example, Mark at Salesforce, who's the CEO of Salesforce, addressed the fact that there's a gender pay gap in his company, and they found out there was a gender pay gap, and he said, all right, this isn't good enough, we're going to sort this out. And he's been very transparent about that fact, and so they've been in the process of eliminating gender pay gap across the company, and apparently that's resulted in a 30% rise in promotions of women across the company, because people are just realising, actually, hang on, this is a big problem within our company. And I think, as you said before, Mark, as well, I think sometimes people don't necessarily they don't think about it, or they don't realise it. And especially if you're a man, I think if it's not directly affecting you and you're not being discriminated against, you're not experiencing the effects of it in your career or life in general, then you're probably not aware of it. So as Maria said, we've got to all be thinking about this and just accepting there's a problem and taking responsibility for it. I mean, I'm part of the team actually curating ADE this year, and I was at a planning meeting on Monday, and one of the team, who's a male, very famous DJ, but shall remain nameless, kind of said, we were having a discussion about men and women being equally represented in the conference, and I have to say, I've always gone to AD and, tweeted complaints vociferously and saying, why aren't there more women on panels? This isn't good enough. This is not okay. And I think all music industry events are, to some extent, a bit guilty of that as well, not representing women enough. But he was like, I'm wary of positive discrimination as well, and not having people, sort of having people on the panel just because, for the sake of it, because they're women, which I totally understand. But my sort of point was back to him, but we have to just be aware of this, because there are plenty of talented women at all levels of the music industry. It's just that it's a hell of a lot easier to think of the men, because there's still a lot more men than women in dance music. And so therefore, when people are planning and they're putting together conferences, it's just easier to think, oh yeah, I know this guy, we'll stick him on the panel, instead of making the extra effort to think, actually, there's a woman here who's equally talented, let's get her involved as well. So it's just, men just need to be aware of the problem, admit there's a problem, take responsibility for it, as do women, and we all need to make sure that we're working more closely together, in integrating genders.
And not everyone is in a position where their organisations are of such a size, such as Live Nation or CAA, where they've got a group of people that can devise a policy, put it in place and train everybody to change their perceptions. Some people are simply themselves, and we're asking men who've thought only one way for maybe 30, 40 years, and whose friends are all men, and whose business relationships and trusted business relationships are all men. You ask, it's a significant change, because some of this isn't direct, as like I said before, it's not direct sexism. It's 5 blokes that started doing business together at 18, who are now 45, who turn to each other for every piece of advice, having to think differently so that they act differently. How do we make that happen? Because this is what we're talking about. We're talking about entrepreneurs and individuals thinking differently to lead change. Anyone, where do we start?
I was just thinking, because I mainly work with, the women I work with are either professionals themselves or entrepreneurs or whatever. I'd love to mentor more, like to women who are, having difficulties getting a job in this business, and I think this should be our role. We should, because we are all sitting here because we do have a job, and I actually like to, talk to people or mentor girls and women who do not and who find difficulties and to find a job, and maybe we can see how we can, help them or, find a way to make it more easy for them or to push it. Because I think that should be our role. I mean, it's good that we sit here and talk about the fact that it's not going well, but we also should look at, like, I wish there were more people, or like same as I wish there were men, because I'd like to hear a man's point of view, like, why would you like to work with me, or why would you like to work with a man, or why would you like to hire a girl or a guy? But I also like to talk to people who find difficulties in, finding a job or having trouble being a woman in a business full of men.
And B, I loved what you said earlier about the hard versus the soft version of you as your career's gone on, and I love the kind of the juxtaposition between you that Nicole, you don't recognise the issue because you fiercely determined and got on with it, which makes you a role model, and that it shouldn't have to be that way. But yet you also started your career being like that. How do we make sure that we get women through their career based on talent that can be the soft, normal, usual version of themselves rather than fiercely determined and have to change personality to succeed? Because that's the difference. Men don't have to change personality, they just have to rock up. If women have to change personality to succeed, then that's a fundamental flaw.
I think that men need to really step up and basically be quite supportive. I mean, I had a male mentor when I was coming up, and I was always sort of advised that when the gender issue came up, it was something that I should not really acknowledge, and I'm not proud of this at all. It was something that I would just sort of sweep aside and sweep under the carpet and kind of say, no, there is no gender issue. And even though I was definitely dealing with it on a regular basis. And I think it's really important for those male mentors there, like any male in the industry, in any industry, sort of needs to just stand up and be a bit supportive, I think. I would have loved that. For someone to say, actually, no, that's not okay, you should say something. Do something about it. And now I am, which is great. But if I had that when I was younger, when I was young and naive, I would be completely different. And I hope that I can inspire and mentor that next generation.
And just being commercial, how many brilliant DJs, artists and business women have we lost out of this community because they couldn't be tough and they didn't have a mentor and they didn't have the opportunities because men simply didn't create a way of thinking and a way of acting in their organisations for them to come through as themselves? That's what it sounds like. I bet we've lost hundreds of Nicoles that weren't fiery and ferocious, and hundreds of...
I never had a mentor.
Yeah.
I never had a mentor, not when I was growing up or until this point. I had an artist and a creative mentor in my life, but I never had a mentor. I had to do it all by myself. And
but now,
it's not easy.
But obviously. Now you kind of almost, by definition, you are now mentoring to make sure that there are a multitude of Nicoles.
I would like to be a mentor to young boys and young girls, actually.
Yeah. Which is powerful. So I think we're kind of getting towards the stage for questions, because this room has filled up nicely, which means there must be a lot of people prepared to put their hand up. But I think if we take some lessons out of this, we have to acknowledge the situation together. I think, it sounds trite, but men and women need to understand each other. It shouldn't just be, oh yeah, well, it's somebody else's problem. I think the point is we have to make change together. We have to return to the stage together, men and women, next year, talking about it. And I think, speaking selfishly as the association, then there has to be an action and an activity about togetherness from here on, because it's not going to work if every single conference is a panel of women talking about an issue to largely a room of men, because that just feels like extending a war rather than making change. Questions? Please. Anyone?
Don't be scared.
Okay, I think Nicole had a great point when she said that she's determined and her determination is what's got her there, and that many women can't do what she does as well as many men. I think she had a great point. Do you all think that the reason that there's less women DJs than men is because there's less desire from women to be DJs and be traveling around the world and carrying heavy record boxes, and they have a different desire? And I actually believe that there is diversity in the music scene, and that we are open-minded enough to accept all all races, or all of the different sexual preferences, women, men. I think that there is that diversity. I think that for there to be more women performers, DJs, entertainers, we need to encourage more women to actually do it. And it's the desire of women that means there's less.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. It's out there, and if women want to do it, it's out there for them to do it, as well as men. As you said, it's not an easy job. It's very lonely, it's very hectic, sleepless nights, living out of a suitcase and traveling the world. People think it's glamorous, but it's not. But at the end of the day, if you're passionate about this and this is what you want to do, then you can go out there and grab it, whether you're a girl or a boy.
But if I flip that question round, is there really less desire for women to be DJs and artists? Because that was a really interesting word. Do women have the desire? I'm not sure that's true. I don't think that's true. Brilliant question. I think 99% of it I totally agree with, but I just want to throw that out. Do you think there's less desire amongst women to be in electronic music? Because if there is, then the problem is much, much bigger than we think.
Well, I just think, we did a report into dance music attendees, and there's more females interested in dance music. There's more female attendees in Ibiza than there are men. So I don't understand how that really makes sense when there are so many women interested in dance music.
Maybe they are interested in dance music, but not interested in DJing or producing music. Or I think there's a difference. I was not interested in technology or making music when I was younger. You were, but I think men are more interested in technique and producing and making music at a young age. But that's my point of view. But I think in general, interested in dance music is a different story. But being a DJ, I think there are more men interested in being a DJ than women, definitely.
There are also more men who are interested to design dresses and wedding dresses than women.
Brilliant.
I disagree. I think you need to train from the beginning and condition and upbring your girl and your boy exactly the same thing. I never had a doll to play with, so I used to play with hammers and nails. So Yes, but they never used to let me do that. And they always wanted to put the doll. And I think this is where it should start initially, you know. Push the person to what they're good at and just bring them up, expose the kids to all kinds of knowledge and let them choose to be who they are rather than condition them and put them in certain boxes. You have to behave this way and you have to behave that way. It's wrong. This is where we should start changing the upbringing and the perception of roles.
Brilliant. Next question.
Sure. So, this is a really interesting panel, and it just brought to mind, in America where I live, we have a long way to go when it comes to equality and just seeing women on the same level as men. But something that came to my mind was, in America, STEM, the sciences, women, and they've done extensive research about this, it's really fascinating. So in primary school, you'll see women equally interested in mathematics and the sciences as boys. And then there's a tipping point, and they're quite concerned about it. And what they have found out is that teachers and leaders, influencers, are actually completely focusing on boys. And so they're now conditioning women to not ask and no longer be interested in the sciences. Because to raise your hand, to get up in front of the class, maybe that's something that's not what they want to do. Women express themselves in different ways. So what they're finding is that it's almost like women, of course they're equally as interested in what men are. We're all human beings. It's bullshit to think that, personally, is my opinion, of course, that a woman would not aspire to be a DJ, a producer, an engineer, a business person. It's, of course, they have the same wants and aspirations. We're all human beings. But I think if you condition individuals, then you take sort of ownership out of that. Do they really want to be a leader? Of course they do. But if you're conditioning them not to, then they will never have that platform. So I think actually, this is my end point, very long-winded way of saying, I think this panel right here, I think you are all an anomaly, because I think you beat the odds, in fact. Because in the music industry, which is completely male-dominated, if you think about it, everything was against you. And somehow in your brain, you said, I don't accept this conditioning. I see myself above and beyond that. And obviously, you're talking to us. And I think it's pretty cool. I think the future is where a boy can aspire to be like Nicole, because that boy listens to Nicole rock in a crowd and says, wow, I want to be that. Devoid of, that's a female, male. I want to be on the radio. I want to negotiate a deal for CAA just like you do. I want to work for Ticketmaster, so on and so forth.
Love you.
Almost want to stop there. Are there any more questions?
Hi. This is a touch on what the last guy just spoke about. One of you touched on unconditional bias training, and I feel that's where a lot of the discussion comes back to. Is this I think when you were saying men need to accept they're sexist, I think women do as well. It's so entrained, it's entrenched in you. I did a course at uni, on subjectivity and sexuality, and that totally changed my whole view of everything. But not everyone can go to uni and read crazy theory books. Not everyone has the opportunity, not everyone wants to. So I really wanted to know, what is the unconditional bias training, what does it involve, and how can you make it relatable? How do we make people want to do it?
It's unconscious bias training, and I think now more than ever there is a real demand for it. the guy who's doing it with our organisation, his name escapes me, but he does the Olympics, Paralympics, he trains all of those big organisations. I think even if you just Google unconscious bias training, you'll see courses, stuff online that you can research. There's so much out there on the internet. Maybe we can send around some sort of an email with some links to some really interesting articles. There's an amazing TED Talk that I can send out to show you, which talks all about that. But yeah, I think it's a really important part of the next step, because it's not just about females. It's like unconscious bias is human nature, right? It's like I just want to like people that look like me and that, have the same upbringing as me. It's, it is inherent, and it's something that you just need to be more self-aware of, I think, and that's a huge important part of it.
So you never learn anything new, experience anything new, think anything new until you break down that bias.
True that.
Any more questions? No.
Guys, step up.
I think there's still a lot of issues within the DJ community. Sorry, I went to the IU Mag launch on Tuesday at the Ushuaia Tower, and Danny Rampling had done an amazing set with Iona, his wife, and they'd done a really good thing at the beginning of the night. And then once Darius Rossian was on, it's probably about 11 o'clock, Iona went to go back on, and it was like there was a guy in a hat, one of the DJs, and he kind of looked at her like, "What the hell are you doing? You're not meant to be doing this now." And I could just see from her face, it was just that kind of, well, I'm meant to be here. I'm on the lineup as well. And it was just that real thing of the male DJ kind of persona of, no, you're not meant to be here. You're not meant to be here. We're waiting for Eats Everything, back to back with Pete Tong, da. And it was just kind of that male thing within the DJ community. They're kind of not accepting of females doing their thing yet. I don't know how we're going to change that perception within the DJ community.
I don't understand it, sorry.
It's for, I know what you're talking about, definitely. Hello? I definitely understand what you're saying. It's happened to me before with a male sound engineer at a gig or anything like that. Have you ever had that where you show up and the engineer is just like, "I'm sorry, you're not a DJ. There's no way that you are the DJ." And
are you serious?
Yeah, it happens. It happened to me only a few weeks ago.
Not on my clock.
And I think it is. I mean, it is important for me to talk about that. You are very lucky that that's never happened.
You just don't allow it to happen. That's it.
How do I do that?
By talking to the engineer and tell him, "Go back to your desk and do your job."
I've definitely done that. Definitely. Have definitely called out my fair few of tech engineers, but changing their opinion of female DJs, of female artists, I don't know. It's up to the men to sort of sort that out themselves, I think.
But it is really core to the point. Is that your response to that is go and fucking tell him to sort it out. But not every woman is you, and nor should every woman have to be you. Every woman should be able to achieve what they want to achieve based on who they are and the talent they have, rather than tell people to go fuck off.
I've seen the same problem happen to men. Don't get me wrong.
So everybody should be able to achieve whatever they want.
You don't have to, but
but
there are some people who need to be talked this way because they're not doing their job. Period.
Good. I know, I just want to go out for a night out with Nicole, to be honest. All that's in my mind is, what a fucking night out that would be. Next question. Anyone? Brilliant. Well, I kind of feel like we must be getting to that point then. Any more, honestly, there's about 5 minutes. Please feel free to put your hand up or ask anything. Ooh, in which case, I've got to say, go on. Closing words from
I just want to say how delighted I am that we're doing this panel again on diversity. We didn't do it last year. I'm really grateful for all of you coming and participating in this. I just truly believe the more we talk about these issues, the less uncomfortable it will feel. And I definitely think that we will impact great change in our community if we continue to be the best that we can be.
Thank you very much. We're all brilliantly going to stay on stage, I think, for the next bit. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody on stage and in the room, and for the great questions and for the great answers. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.